correlating the things where biasness may not be involved, right? So that is something we have to keep in mind. Now, you know, if I have to, if I have to again conceptualize or rather, summarize the part of the contents in your syllabus pertaining to public policy, therein, I would put it something like this, that, you have first unit wherein you try to understand the meaning of public policy and especially in the background of the discussions, which would be based on the views or ideas of different scholars or academicians. Then you move on to understand some of the select models which are studied in the discipline of public policy, right? Again, we are selective in our choice of those theories or models, primarily on two accounts. Number one, that we have to administer this particular course within a fixed period of time, and number two, considering the utility or rather than popularity of particular theory or model. So that is where Harold de Laswell's cyclical model, right, wherein he would propose that how every government frames its policies which follows a particular cycle, right, follows a particular cycle where part of the policies they come back in the form of feedback, and again they become part of the ongoing decisions of the government, meaning that he would say that policies possibly they do not come to an end completely, right? It's an ongoing process wherein there are the stages in the cycle that he explains. We will come to those stages, and we will come to discuss those stages when we would discuss last well, right? So similarly, when say for instance Gary Brewer, for instance, he also discusses that there are certain cycles in the whole process of public policy making and its execution and assessment. Then he suggests that this is how public policies are made by the government, and assessment of a particular policy can take place either by independent observers or by the government itself, right? So, these are the things which would give us some theoretical or academic insight to understand how actually policies are formulated and implemented. That is where we have chosen that we would try to understand all these things in the context of Indian example, that how the whole process of policy formulation, its execution, and its assessment takes place in India, right? So that's where we will look at the role of different actors. What are the ideas which inform the policymakers when they choose certain policies and they do not accept certain policies? Then who are the actors involved, right? So considering the nature of the term political policy or scope of the concept which we are referring to as public policy, we are primarily referring to the actions of the government. What Thomas Dye, had explained as that public policy is something which can be understood as the actions of the government, be it a decision of the government which government chooses to do, or be it the decision of the government which it chooses not to do. Meaning that whatever the government chooses to do or not to do, that becomes the subject matter of public policy, right? So that is where one is inclined to think, or one is rather uh, would understand that as far as public policy is concerned, it is certainly the domain of the government itself. But actually, this is not so. Right? There are various other actors involved who influence the whole policy making process, who are involved even at the execution level, and as far as the assessment is concerned, right? As far as the assessment is concerned, therein are also independent agencies who play an important role, right? Who play an important role. So, these independent agencies may even be entrusted by the government itself to make an evaluation of its policies, right? So these are some of the these are some of the interesting aspects related to public policy. Therein, we will also try to look at the constitutional provisions and and some and some way or the other that that stages they are involved in the public policy making, right? Of course, we will also try to take certain examples and we'll try to understand with the help of those examples, right? And I would expect that maybe as part of your assessment, you can choose one of the policies which was implemented in the past by the government, or which is right now ongoing, right, as a case study, and then possibly you can come up with your own analysis of the policy, and maybe you can try to apply some theoretical model or some theory or some model to understand that how actually the government formulated policies, whether it fits in the theoretical parameters which you have studied, or as far as the decision or actions of the government are concerned, it does not have much relationship with the theoretical model, rather than eventually the discipline ends up studying what actually government has done, right? So this is how, in fact, some of the theorists, they have also tried to understand that as far as the public policy as a discipline is concerned, right? So the discipline is more concerned with the actions of the government. So it eventually ends up by looking at, analyzing, studying whatever the government has done, and maybe its further study is dependent upon the post facto analysis of the actions of the government. So these are some of the things which can be paid attention to during the course of our discussions, as well as your endeavor to know more about the discipline and about the subject, right? Now, the next two units, they are related to public administration, right? See, there is a relationship between public administration and public policy. Definitely, yes. But if you look at the evolution of these two subfields in political science, they have started acquiring independent status over a period of time, right? So many of the universities, they do have an independent program, which deal with the point I had made earlier, rather, that which deal with MA or MSc in public policy or MA in public administration, right? But the objective was that for the purpose of this course, we should put them together, and we should focus on certain areas which would inform the participants of the course in a required manner. I'm not saying that the issues or the topics that you would cover under the syllabus, they are comprehensive, but they would inform you uh, uh, whenever it comes to understand a particular policy of the government or the administrative functions of the government, right? So that is why we try to put together certain elements of the discipline from public policy and public administration, so that overall you can understand the way government functions, the way state functions. Because I understand that by knowing more about the actions of the government, and by knowing more about the way actually government works, right, you'd be in a better position to appreciate you'd be in a better position to appreciate the operation of law in a particular state, right?